Hello, everyone. Welcome to my presentation. My name is Yangmingting Fang, and I go by Ting. Recently, I received my DMA in piano performance with a secondary concentration in piano pedagogy at the University of Alabama under Dr. Kevin Chance. Now I'm working at Orpheus Academy of Music in Austin, Texas as a piano instructor. I'm very grateful for this wonderful opportunity to share my research and learn from all of you here.
My topic today is engaging students with autism in music lessons. Before I start, I would want to first talk a little bit about how I got interested in this topic. I myself is not an expert in teaching students with special needs, and what motivated me to know more about autism was simply because of a lesson request from a parent who hoped to have me teach piano to their 7-year-old boy on the spectrum. I hesitated at first because I know it would be challenging with my zero previous experience. Plus, I'm not a doctor, but then I was thinking, all I need to do was to spend some more time on my end, such as looking for effective teaching methods and communication strategies when I plan for my lessons. Then, as I get to know the student more theoretically and personally, it will also become easier and easier. So I really couldn't find a single reason to say no whenever I think that what I do would be able to make someone's life brighter. So now, whenever I think back how I got started, I always feel thankful for this experience because this is what got me step into a new teaching field, which also gave me more confidence whenever I am asked to teach students with autism again. Now at Orpheus Academy of Music, one of the founders, Miss Wendy, also inspired me a lot in teaching students with autism. I remembered she also told me that there were lots of kids with autism in the community who don't even go to school, and music is everything in their life. Therefore, she would also be willing to spend time to get to know them more, learn to make better lesson plans, and lighten their life up with music. And today, I hope that my presentation will serve as a guide for inexperienced music teachers who desire to use their role as a music educator to elevate the life quality for students with autism. It will be divided into 3 parts. First part, I will discuss the causes, symptoms, and some facts and statistics of autism in order to bring a more comprehensive understanding to children on the spectrum. Then I will focus on the relationship between music and autism, and more importantly, how we as music teachers can do throughout the process. In this part, I will include information and suggestions from the specialists that will help the teacher and the students interact more effectively in the lesson. In addition to the theoretical support from the specialists, in this part, there will also be practical instructions, such as strategies for lesson planning and classroom setup. And in the third part, I will emphasize the importance of parental involvement, offering advice for what parents can do to make the learning process more successful. Hopefully, after my presentation, you will be able to get some more ideas in teaching students with autism and will not be afraid if you ever want to utilize the power of music to bring some happiness to children with autism. First question, what is autism? So autism spectrum disorder is a condition that associated with brain development. This neurobiological disorder usually appears before the age of 3. It mainly impacts how people perceive and socialize with others. Therefore, one of the major characteristics we find from someone with autism is that they have trouble communicating and the social interaction. The term spectrum in autism spectrum disorder refers to the wide range of symptoms and the severity. Genes and environments are considered as the main causes of autism. For some children, autism can be associated with genetic disorder. And in other cases, genetic changes may also increase the risk of autism. Some genetic mutations seem to be inherited, while others occur spontaneously. If one child of the twins is diagnosed autism, the other may also be affected. And among identical twins is about 75% of the time, and among non-identical twins is about 3% of the time. Parents also have a 2 to 8% chances of having a second child with autism if their first child is diagnosed autism already. Also, boys are about 4 times more likely to be diagnosed with autism, and the ratio is about 1 in 27 for boys and 1 in 116 for girls. In general, everyone with autism may act differently and display different strengths and weaknesses, such as different communication skills and different intelligence quotient. There are also a lot of environmental factors that triggers autism, and researchers are still exploring the key factors. For example, viral infections, medications, or complications during pregnancy. Overall, there's no cure for autism, and there's not a certain treatment that fits everybody's needs. But early intervention does help the children progress more efficiently, and the goal of relevant treatment is to maximize the children's ability to function through reducing the symptoms and supporting development and learning. Here are some recent statistics about autism. According to these dramatically growing figures, you can see that autism is the fastest growing developmental disability, which exists everywhere, and it is not affected by race, region, or socioeconomic status. Children with autism will usually show signs by age 3, and some of them show signs of autism disorder in early infancy, such as reduced eye contact, lack of response to their name, and so on. And for others, they may not act any differently for the very first few months or even years of life. They've just developed normally, but however, one day they might suddenly lose language skills that they've already acquired. Each child with autism spectrum disorder is likely to have a unique pattern of behavior and a level of severity, from low functioning to high functioning. Some children on the spectrum have difficulty in learning, and some have signs of lower than normal intelligence. Others might have normal to high intelligence. They learn quickly, but at the same time, they have trouble communicating because it is hard to apply what they experience in daily life and adjust to social situations. I actually have a student like that, and that kind of surprises me because usually one of the challenging parts I found about teaching students with autism is I need to incorporate all kinds of different teaching aids to accommodate for their learning styles. But for this kid, the only challenging lesson was our first lesson because he just didn't say a single word to me and he didn't quite feel comfortable playing in front of me. However, starting from the second lesson, I found that he's a very independent learner. He doesn't speak for more than 3 words, but he listens to all my instructions. He gets things immediately, and he reacts with his unique nonverbal motions. So this student actually serves as a great example leading to the next point regarding the symptoms and the signs. Because of the unique mixture of symptoms in each child, severity can sometimes be difficult to determine. It is generally based on the level of impairments and how they impact the ability to function. We often say that no two snowflakes are alike, and it is the same with autism. Every person with autism is unique, and there are no two cases are identical. I've had students who barely talk or respond to me during the lesson, and I've also met one who can communicate just fine as long as I guided him with direct questions that make enough sense to him. So in general, people with autism have a hard time with social interaction and communication, no matter they are children or adults. Here I've listed some signs. For example, they might prefer to be in their own world, that they zone out oftentimes, and sometimes they may not respond to his or her names or just not hear you talk. Tendency to avoid eye contact is also a typical sign. And at the same time, you will not see too much expression change on their face. In terms of communication style, they are usually demonstrating limited verbal skills, or as I brought up earlier, some people might not talk at all. However, there will also be another typical sign regarding the speaking style, that they might talk in a non-traditional way, such as speaking with an unusual tone and unusual pace, which can be singing-like and talking with a high-pitched voice, or like a robot. It is also nearly impossible for them to start a conversation or try to keep the conversation going, as they only respond to your direct questions. When they want to make a request, they may initiate the question, but that's it. They are also not able to express their feelings or emotions well, so it is hard for them to catch others' emotional change or expression. Sometimes they may interact with you or talk to you in a very inappropriate way, which can be very rude or even aggressive. Of course, it's hard not to feel offended sometimes, but we should also try not to take that personally. That's not something under their control either. If that ever happened during the lesson, we should address it to them and include that into classroom rule. Besides these communication-related symptoms above, people with autism may also display symptoms through their behaviors. They tend to show repetitive patterns in their movement, which is also called stimming. Stimming can be visual, verbal, auditory, taste, and more. For instance, visual stimming is related to sense of light, sense of sight. Possible movements might be staring at objects, lining up toys, flipping hands, or blinking repeatedly. For auditory or verbal related stimming, people may repeat saying the words or sentences that they have learned from books, songs, or movie lines, or they tend to make noisy sound in a very high pitch. And sometimes if you notice a person often wanting to smell things or taste unusual objects, that can be a sign of autism, as that reflects taste stimming. Other symptoms also include, but not limited to, fixed interest, poor coordination, reliance on routine, overwhelming anxiety and stress, and hypersensitivity or hyposensitivity. Since the severity of symptom may vary and every child acts differently, sometimes it is possible that parents not even be able to tell because every kids are different. Also, sometimes they may know but don't talk to the teacher about it, especially when the children only has mild symptoms and they don't feel comfortable telling the teacher about the truth, which makes our job a little more challenging because we will have to be more sensitive with the students' behaviors and then figure out the most effective way of teaching as we get to know the students more. Therefore, I think it's very helpful for us as teachers to have some more understanding of some basic symptoms. Of course, most of us are not specialists or doctors, but if we are able to make some assumptions on our end, it will help give a better signal if we don't hear from the parents and help us make more effective lesson plans. All right, as we get more information about autism, let's now find out together what we as music teachers can do with our powerful tool, music. So when I was doing research on this topic, besides getting a lot of ideas and strategies of my teaching, another big takeaway was to find out how powerful music can be. Music is surely an important part of our lives, and it's everywhere. But what really got me realize how much music can positively influence people is the research about music and the brain by neuroscientist Kiminobu Sugaya and the world-renowned violinist Ayako Yonatani. Both of them are from University of Central Florida. They've been teaching the course called Music and the Brain since the year of 2006, which explores the relationship of music and its impact to brain function and behavior. For instance, reducing stress, pain, and symptoms of depression, as well as improving cognitive and motor skills, spatial temporal learning, and the neurogenesis. And oh, by the way, neurogenesis is the brain's ability to produce neurons. And among their numerous cases, one of the most impressive one to me was their discussion about how people with neurodegenerative diseases can positively respond to music, such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So Dr. Sugaya mentions that usually in the late stages, Alzheimer's patients are unresponsive, but once you put the headphones that play their favorite music, their eyes light up. They start moving and sometimes singing. The effect will also last maybe about 10 minutes or so, even after you turn off the music. In recent studies, they've also found that people with dementia respond better to the music they grew up listening to. If you play someone's favorite music, different parts of the brain light up, Dr. Sugaya explains. And he said, that means memories associated with music are emotional memories, which never fade out, even in Alzheimer's patients. There are also quite a lot of researchers in the past decade that provide a comprehensive discussion of music and the brain. According to the research article, From Music Making to Speaking, Engaging the Mirror Neuron System in Autism, music might engage brain regions that overlap the human mirror neuron system, which is mainly involved in speech perception and production. Also, music is processed in both hemispheres of the brain, which helps stimulate cognitive functioning such as attention, learning, thinking, and remembering. and also serves as remediation of restoring speech and language skills. So similarly, in autism treatment, music is often used as therapeutic intervention to address behavior, social, communicative, physical, psychological, sensory motor, and the cognitive functioning. Because it provides a motivating way in the exploration of flexibility and spontaneity, and it helps to guide individuals with autism to express emotions appropriately and encourage them to build family and social connections. So according to all the results and facts, here are a list of impacts that music has, and I'm sure that more will be discovered in the future. What do we do as a music teacher? That's a question I keep asking myself. So before I met my first student on the spectrum, I couldn't stop asking myself this, like, what's my role? What should I do? How do I teach them? How do I talk? What should I expect from them? I wanted to do a great job, and I wanted to provide effective lessons and great experiences to my students. So I almost over-rehearsed the scenario in my mind. But after I met him and had our first lesson, I started to realize that it was not as hard as I think. Yes, it is challenging, but definitely not undoable. And actually, teaching overall is challenging because all the students are different, and apparently, we cannot just come up with a single perfect method and apply it to all of our students. Therefore, I started to change my mindset. Instead of treating the student with autism as someone with disorder, I will just treat them as one of my many students, and we will figure out a suitable approach for them as we get to know them a little bit more. So when it comes to teaching students with autism, we as the teachers should definitely know our roles, know who we are and what we want throughout the process. In my opinion, I consider myself as a music teacher who wants to utilize what I am passionate at, which is music, to bring some joy to the students with autism and guide them find out a new self throughout the exploration of music and piano. But I'm not a doctor, psychologist, or a therapist, so I should allow myself to take time to figure out the students and figure out the best approaches for them, rather than blaming myself when something is not working quite well as expected. What I should do is to try different ways based on their characteristics and skills. Once we've acquired a better understanding of the students and figure out their strengths and weakness, making lesson plan for individual will also be less and less challenging. Going along with that, we as teachers should always discover the strengths and potential of the students and set goals for them. Never lower expectation because they have autism. Most importantly, they are our students and they're here to learn the skills. Of course, we set different goals for different students based on their skill levels, but that never means that I have lower expectations on them. I might ask for different tasks or even easier tasks, but my goal is always to motivate them to be the best that they can be. But so often I would be amazed by how much they could accomplish and break the stereotype. As they demonstrate effort and progress, we should always encourage them and acknowledge their accomplishments. And of course, communicate with the students effectively to make sure that lesson flows well and we really understand each other. This is actually quite tricky, especially with those students who barely talk. So here I listed some communication strategies. As I mentioned in the previous part of my presentation, a lot of children with autism have very limited verbal skills, or some just don't talk. Therefore, communication will be one of the first challenges we face during the lesson. But if we think positively, we should realize that communication doesn't always equal to words. It can be a gesture, facial expression, eye contact, or little sounds they make. So we should really be aware of any little movement on their end. Now I have learned that as long as they have reaction and make eye contact with me sometimes, I can see hope. Because if they don't even care what you're doing or make eye contact with you, there will be not be any progress. Talk in short phrase and simplified language is also important, and it is actually one of the biggest challenges for me. I was pretty good at picking up their little gestures, but occasionally I just couldn't help talking a lot. It was actually just several months ago while teaching a student on the spectrum. Because his playing was quite good, I was so happy and I wanted to work on shape of the phrase. So for 1 second, I forgot about his age and his communication skill. Then I asked a question like, very nice. Now look at this phrase. What image or scene does this feel to you, and what would you do to make it even better shape? And he literally looked at me saying nothing for 3 seconds. Then I was like, oh no, I can see from his eyes that he thought I was crazy. Then I pretended like nothing had happened just now and demonstrate 2 different versions of my playing to him and ask, okay, which one is better, version 1 or version 2? And then he will be like, version 1. Then I ask, what makes it better? Is it because the differences of loud and soft? Then he said yes and not, and show me on piano. I will be like, okay, what else? Fingers go deep into the key. He nods and show me on piano again. Then I'm like, wonderful. Now show me differences of each note like my version 1 again, just like that. And then I demonstrate it again and make him imitate my playing, and it works great. Then incorporate assistive devices and the visual supports, such as pictures or objects that the children can touch. This would be more applicable to group music class, so like a sensory room. But in private lesson, we could also apply similar ideas if possible, such as a color-coded system that help with reading. And we can associate different objects, emotions with colors to help make the lesson and communication more effective. Here is an example to show how the color-coded idea can help with piano playing in lessons with autism students. So it shows how we can relate notes on the stuff to the notes located on the keyboard. An important thing for us teachers to keep in mind is that we always need to provide them opportunities to communicate. If we don't get immediate response from them, it's okay. We can wait a bit rather than filling in language right after that. Probably they need a few seconds to think before they talk. Even if they don't talk, we can also make it work because, again, communication doesn't always have to be verbal. To me, it could be a bit discouraging at first because I was trying my best and talking endlessly, but all I heard was silence. Then I began to be more attentive to their little gestures. Maybe they are indicating their feelings through nonverbal feedbacks, such as little movements or facial expression, or even just sudden emotion in their eyes. Then we need to catch that little moment and provide prompt response. Once they find out that we see what they're doing and we're addressing that, they will be encouraged to communicate more and provide more responses in return. Also, as we're offering instructions, make sure that we always give positive direction. So try not to use the word don't and stop. The students may get confused. For instance, it is more effective to say, please put your pencil down rather than saying, do not hold your pencil. Okay, so next, before we dive into lesson plans, let's briefly talk about some classroom setup tips. So of course, visual aid. For classroom setup, the first thing, as previously discussed, is visual aid. And it will most of the time be a good addition to our studio, such as the visual lesson plan cards, a project that student can touch, and so on. Also, be aware of potential distractions in the classroom. Students with autism may be especially sensitive to the noise, bright light, or smell. All these things may overwhelm the students and result in sensory avoidance. And then provide written rules to clarify expectations during the lessons is helpful. And when they are not behaving appropriately, it is necessary to address that. So at Orpheus, we have a board on all the group classroom which states, be musical, be helpful, be safe, and be respectful. And the next point almost applied to all the students, which is to explore different sounds. Especially for students with autism, they are very sensitive to the sound. And most of the time, most of the autism students I've met have very good ears, actually. Even during piano lessons, we can use application to present the sounds of different instruments and create ensemble effects. So if possible, teachers may also prepare another instrument in the room. At Orpheus, we use Kodai method to young beginners, so we have a step bell in every room. I really love to use that, even with non-Kodai students and especially with students with autism, because it provides visual support for them to get a better understanding of notes and pitches relationship. Whereas it is relatively harder to explain high and low on piano because it looks like a flat surface. So I think step bell is an effective and also affordable little instrument to get, which can be a very nice addition to the studio. So in terms of lesson planning, to me, the first step to make effective lesson plan for autism students is to form meaningful connection with the students, and more importantly, enter their words and try to put ourselves on their spots to think before we make the lesson plans for them. So I remember reading one article by Dr. Scott Price, which he mentions that I need to change my thinking to experience his word in the way he experiences it. And I have to let the student teach me and show me new teaching tools. And I will have to be able to use those tools in new and unfamiliar ways. And then communicate with the students or talk to their parents to find out their interest. and then bring their interest into lesson. And through that, we can give them a little surprise. Always take their interest into consideration. If there is a type of music that they are especially interested, we could choose some to work together as a fun piece or challenging piece. If they have a favorite animal, talk to them about the animal and associate that with any little concept in the lesson. What I've tried is I ask a student of his favorite animal, and then the next week I printed out 4 pictures of different animal with his favorite included and attach each of them on the back of a sight reading example. Then at the beginning of the lesson, I presented to him and said, let's start with doing some sight reading. Why don't you choose an animal? Oh, and look here, I included your favorite one. So it's just a little thing, but I can see that he looked very happy. And of course, he picked the example with his favorite animal on it. Then we can always prepare some rewards to motivate the students. So traditionally speaking, it can be a sticker or a little toy, but reward doesn't always have to be an object. It can be playing a little music game together, or teacher playing students' favorite songs for them, or sing a song together. Anything that interests the students will be considered as a reward. So one of my favorite is that I reward them with a 4 or 8 measures mini improvisation. So I let the students pick 4 or 8 notes as the starting notes of each measure, and I will improvise a little song for them. Sometimes they will even have me write it down because it just feels so meaningful to have something written specifically for them. Another thing to keep in mind that's very important is to make sure that there is a routine. People with autism is oftentimes routine oriented, and that's why they may always bring an agenda with them with the detailed schedule of each event listed out. Without a schedule or instruction, they won't really feel lost easily. With one of my students, the first thing I have him play at the beginning of every lesson is 5-finger scales warm up. But during one lesson, I forgot to tell him what to do, and he was staring at me with confusion. Then after I said, oh, sorry, let's do F minor 5-finger scales. Then he started playing. And Miss Wendy also shared with me a story of her students on the spectrum. So she always writes out a schedule on whiteboard to indicate classroom rule and every little concept involved in the lesson. Once she was too busy before the lesson and didn't have time to write it out. Then the students was standing in front of the board after he stepped in the room and had no clue what to do or where to start. So here is a sample lesson procedures that we can write on board before the student's arrival. So in general, we want to have a routine that allows flexibility. So for me, I will prepare some different games or ear training examples for the lesson. If we spend longer than usual time on the repertoire, I will go with a shorter activity. And if things flow well and we have some extra time, we can do some more. And I also got a lot of ideas here from Miss Wendy. And this actually works well with ADHD students too. And during the lesson, so after the students finish each step, they might come to the whiteboard and put a check mark next to it and move on to the next step. So if you are new to teaching students with autism, I think this can be a very good first step that you consider. Next tip is to make sure that we only focus on one thing at a time. Although we need to make sure that we are not lowering our expectations because many of them may display special talent in music. But at the same time, we also need to remember that we only focus on one concept at a time rather than throwing all the information to them at once. Being a piano player is already a multitasker, as we need to read music, process all the information on page, and present the ideal sound on piano. Therefore, we shouldn't make the students' life even harder by making them become a multitasker on top of multitasks. And creating repetitive learning tasks will also be effective for them. One of the symptoms of autism students is that they tend to show repetitive movements in daily life. When it comes to lesson, we can actually try to take advantage of that symptom and make that a good practice habit. So whenever we repeat a task, we should treat it more like an enjoyment rather than work. For instance, if I want to focus on one little trouble section and revisit that during the lesson multiple times and focus on articulation change, for example, I might make them play like jump, which is staccato, and then jump loud, then jump soft. And then when we come back to the section again the second time, we're gonna work on walk, which is legato. So walk loud and walk soft. And then the last time we come to that section, we will jump for the first half, then walk for the second half. So something like that. Try to make it like playing again instead of like forcing them to repeat one task over and over again. And of course, we should know the strengths and the weakness to make a good plan. Like for my first autism student, he couldn't really associate 5 lines on the staff with letter names and the keyboard. But he's a visual learner and he's very sensitive with colors. So what I did at the beginning of his learning process was I had bigger size stuff paper and I indicate different nodes with different colors on the line or in the space. Then I put the same color stickers on the key and encourage him to relate the note location on the stuff to where they are on the piano, which was just like the example I showed previously. So as we get to know the students more personally and have a better understanding of their skills, it will also help us to set reasonable goals and prepare a well-structured practice plan. One last little note for us teachers is to keep a healthy mindset, always. No matter how careful and thoughtful we plan for the lesson, it will not always go as we expected. And that's all right. Maybe the student is just not having a good day, which oftentimes happens to us too. We shouldn't deny a specific method when it's not working out immediately, but instead, we need to be patient with the students and be patient to ourselves as well. So in order to make an effective lesson plan, we also should never forget about our best resources, parents. Especially when it comes to teaching students with special needs, parental involvement becomes even more crucial. We only see the students once a week, but parents stay with them 24/7. So with that in mind, it is important for us to keep in touch with the parents, to keep them updated on the students' progress, as well as figure out what they can do at home to make the lesson time more valuable and effective. Here are a few things that parents could do. So first, of course, follow the interest of the child and share some fun moments with the teacher. I'm always interested to find out students' non-music or non-piano interests and seek the connection between them. Then, as mentioned earlier, parents and teachers should communicate actively to make the learning process smoother and more successful. We need to talk about our expectations and goals to the students. And then the parents will need to provide us some more information about the students' practice at home. For example, what are the biggest challenges and where did the confusion come from? And what is the student's favorite part or least favorite part during his or her practice at home? So for us, having a better understanding of what's going on during their daily practice will also be extremely helpful. Next, it would be very nice if parents can do some musical activities with the kids. It is hard for most kids to sit still and drill in front of piano all the time. And a lot of times, off-piano practice will also greatly help develop piano or music-relevant skills, such as rhythm, steady beat, and get sensitive with the atmosphere and mood change within music. Also, it is necessary for parents to encourage kids' social interaction. Even children with autism are used to stay in their own world. It is still very important for parents to encourage them to interact. And of course, parents also need to help provide pleasant opportunities for the students to communicate. And then imitation. It is effective for parents to mimic the sound and behavior of the students, just like how we need to observe students' nonverbal gestures and respond in order to get more feedbacks. The way that parents imitate children's behavior will also encourage more interaction and vocalizing. However, always keep in mind that only imitate positive behavior. And the last part of my presentation, I have included some of my favorite resources for me to get more ideas in teaching students with autism. The first website, I'm sure that everybody is familiar with it. So Teachers Pay Teachers. Here, besides purchasing school resources, there are also a lot of great teaching resources that we can incorporate into lessons with students on the spectrum, such as instruments matching flashcard, communication board, sign language book, and calming strategies. And next is my go-to website, Music for Autism. So they aim at raising public awareness about autism, as well as enhancing the life quality of this unique group of people. The highlight of their website is that they offer interactive and autism-friendly concerts for people with autism and their families. Besides live concerts, they also have a great amount of virtual concert events posted on their website. So all individuals with autism will be able to attend the concerts and have some fun from their homes across the nation. Another of my favorite part is their musical zone on their website. You may click any instrument there to begin, like drums, piano, trumpet, or cello, and experience the sound of these instruments and make some music on them. Then is Autism Speaks. This website tells you every little thing you need to know about autism, and I've got a lot of information there too. Not only do they offer thorough explanation regarding the causes, signs, symptoms, interventions, and the therapies regarding autism, they also provide guidance to parents on what they can do for their children and advice for educators and employers. Some of their missions are to increase global understanding of individuals with autism and improve their transition to adulthood. They also offer a lot of online events. And then it's waterford.org. It is a national education nonprofit. I really enjoy referring to their pages to get some ideas of activities and the teaching strategies when it comes to teaching music lessons to special needs students. And of course, autismsociety.org. This is a great resource that creates connections and empower people in the autism community. So there are a considerable amount of useful sources that I didn't get to cover today, and I'm sure that all of us will be pleased and also amazed by how many wonderful resources we can find around us to help support this unique group and help us become a better educator. Besides having some more understanding of the children with autism, this project actually got me rethink my ways of teaching sometimes. For example, those lesson planning and communication strategies does not only apply to teaching autism kids. Like if we have to communicate differently with a very expressive and outgoing girl versus a very shy and sensitive girl. Like we need to always take students' interest into account to build a stronger connection with them. Or even the color-coded system, sometimes just lots of students in general, they love that. And not to mention that we all have some challenging students in different ways that we need to explore effective approaches to help them become more mature musicians. Therefore, for me, I think this research project is quite meaningful because it not only prepared me to become a more confident teacher when it comes to students with special needs, more importantly, it just provides me a lot of ideas and inspirations and encourages me to become a more thoughtful teacher. That's it for today. Thank you very much for your time, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or comments. Thank you.